Now let's talk about GMOs. What is a GMO?
Yeah, so we'll start with the definition, and then as you'll see here, some of these definitions need sub-definitions. But so a genetically modified organism, or GMO, is any organism whose genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering.
Okay.
Another definition, actually by the UN, is a plant is genetically modified if it meets two requirements. One, the plant contains a novel combination of genetic material. Two, it was introduced by using modern biotechnology.
Okay.
So we'll differentiate, what some of this actually means here. But genetic engineering, one of those sub definitions, the definition varies somewhat, but it's an organism that is altered in a way that does not occur naturally by mating and or natural recombination, which is the natural exchange of DNA material between male and female chromosomes in the production of offspring.
Okay, so right off the bat, that means we're not talking about selective breeding.
Exactly. Selective breeding or artificial selection is not genetic engineering, so it's not included in any definition of GMO. The key point there that really differentiates this is artificial selection selects for traits that are already present in a given species. Genetic engineering creates new traits in the species.
Got it.
That's the
for years I was confused about that because I always learned about
the old genetics class.
Exactly. You learn about it in high school of like this monk started taking these bean plants and crossbreeding them, and I always thought that was the same thing, and I was very confused as to why this was a big deal.
So non-GMO is not a lack of science. It's not a lack of human intervention. It just has a very explicit definition of what the difference is.
So you can selectively breed your corn for lower water need.
Yeah.
But that's a much slower, longer process.
And much more natural process.
Got it.
Yes. You're not introducing new DNA to produce new proteins to make it resistant to a given pesticide.
Got it.
That's
okay. All right. All right.
So now on the opposite end, genetic engineering, another one of those sub-definitions. So it's the modification and manipulation of an organism's genes using technology.
Okay.
So this was new to me in terms of what that actually means. So they use something called genetic insertion, gene insertion. So this was kind of mind blowing. They called it, they use a gene gun. That's one of the...
A gene gun?
Yeah. The more technical name is a biolistic particle delivery system.
I like gene gun.
Yeah.
Let's go with that one.
That was good. It delivers DNA into cells. They coat it with a heavy metal. So they coat the particles and literally just inject it and shoot it into cells so that this DNA will then produce the protein that is desired.
Okay, so does that mean that this DNA is then part of the genetic code of that cell?
No, not necessarily.
It's almost like a second entity within it.
It can be. They could, have corn plants that are producing XYZ, but more than likely, it's coming, and very often, it's coming from a different species. That they know that this DNA codes for this protein. They work backwards.
Okay, yeah.
What is increasing yield? What is preventing, this pest from killing these crops? They work backwards. It's this protein, which then is coded by this DNA. Let's extract it. Let's use our gene gun and gene insertion.
Okay.
And then there's one more level to it. There's a promoter that must be included to make the gene express itself. Express literally just means for it to produce proteins, contribute to the phenotype or the observable traits of that organism and the desired code that you just injected into it.
Okay, so in people, we talk about gene expression like sometimes stress can change the gene expression, or substance abuse, or cancer, or all those different things. Adiposity, those can all change gene expression.
Yeah.
You're talking about that sort of thing, but artificially done within the plant.
What you're describing is true. It's just much more complicated. There could be a lot of factors.
Right.
Maybe there's a code written in for substance abuse or something like that, but there's a lot of factors that would come into play to have that end up being expressed and to manifest.
Okay.
Something like this is much more... It's crazy to have gone over all this and say black and white or simple.
Right.
But this DNA makes this protein to give us X effect. we know we can inject it. How do we make sure it's going to make that protein? Because it's from a different plant or whatever.
What'd you call it?
A promoter.
A promoter.
And they are from viruses.
Oh, lovely.
The depth of that I didn't go into, but they are. That is what they use to make sure that this gene expresses itself.
Wow.
So that's in terms of what's practical and relevant. That is the difference between what's genetically modified by the definition with genetic engineering versus the old stuff we learn in class of, we want blue eyes, that kind of thing,
right?
Where you just combine, that's natural selection.
Like dog breeds.
Yes.
We breed for specific traits and that's how we know it. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can have ethical or other concerns about that. But we're still really talking here about plants and there's no proof that is problematic at all. That's just people trying to improve production, etc.